Hey everybody, Chris Parry here from EQUITY.GURU. I am the founding father of the EG website. Pleased to meet you. And sometimes I get on this thing and late at night when the traffic has calmed down and there's no one throwing text messages at me, and I like to rant about a client company or two. Today, I'm going to rant about a thing that's happening in the markets that I think is worth understanding better before it gets out of control, and that is artificial intelligence. AI, as it is more commonly known. Now, a lot of people claim to use artificial intelligence at their company. It's become really a misused word, right? Anyone who has a website that has a little support button there, if you want something, you hit the button and say, I need information on an order, and a script goes and gives you a bunch of words that you know, help you get your order number. That's not AI. It's claimed to be AI. The things like that happen with e-commerce websites with out-of-the-box software are commonly misconstrued as AI or bragged about being AI, and they're not. Artificial intelligence is a very specified thing, and emphasis being on the intelligence, not the artificial. Anyone can create a script that says, if something happens, then something happens. And that's common in all forms of media. It's common in all forms of technology, and any large company that uses technology. We have scripts that we work from. We have processes that are automated. That's not AI. As much as people claim it to be because they want their company to take off on the share market, that ain't it. Recently, we saw BuzzFeed, the archaic, you won't believe what happens next clickbait farm that has been struggling to find a thing to do for itself as a reason for being for the last several years, put out a news release and said, we're going to be using ChatGPT to create some quizzes that are personalized for people on the internet. Basically, translated, we're going to sack a bunch of our people and we're going to replace them with scripts. Now, for this, BuzzFeed was gifted a 300% return on their stock price on the day, which is insanity, by the way. Saying to the world, hey, our really not very useful content is going to get a lot less useful, but it's going to be a lot more of it because it'll all be automated. It's not really a brag. It's kind of an admission of I think, softening business. But hey, you know what? What it really tells us is that AI is something that everyone's got their eyes on, and as soon as a company says, we too are involved in the artificial intelligence business, you can expect people to be buying stock. Now, this is where you need to take a breath. Because if we think back about cannabis and when it landed on the public markets and how every cannabis company, whether or not it was an actual company or just a mining shell that had been repurposed, went to the moon on the promise that, hey, we're all going to make billions of dollars selling weed. We can all see how that played out, right? And the same happened with psychedelics. Mushrooms are great. No one's making any money on shrooms for a while. So that went up and it went down. Esports went up because all our kids are watching it, and then down when everyone realized they couldn't make any money from it. Sports betting went way up, and then down when everyone realized that we're going to be opening up markets one small town at a time for the next 25 years. And then more recently, blockchain became a thing, and that shot the moon for about 3 months, and then everyone realized how shitty it was. Crypto shot up, and then everyone realized how shitty it was. So these things happen. They're cycles that go in. And right now, artificial intelligence is the cycle, right? It's the thing that everyone's looking at to say what's going to shoot the moon next. Excuse me. Now, the thing that you're going to need to look out for is the fact that everybody is going to claim to be an AI company, whether they are or not, whether they're actually involved in machine learning and artificial intelligence and big data, or they've bought a script, or they've co-opted ChatGPT and they're going to do something. So here's the thing. EQUITY.GURU right now, if you go to our front page, you'll notice that all of the images are purpose-made art for the individual stories. They're fantastic. They're amazing. They're consistent and good and entertaining and free. We have an AI art generation bot that we've been using to create these art pieces, and they're great. They fill the need. They fill those holes at zero cost, or $20 a month, and they're doing a great job. We are not an AI company because we're using AI to do without designers, right? This isn't the way it works. So everyone buying BuzzFeed because they think they're going to be some sort of AI gods, they're just using ChatGPT. They're getting a license. Sell your fucking stock. It doesn't make any sense. It's not an AI company. So what is an AI company? Well, now, a company that uses a lot of input, a lot of data, and then has the machine process that data and then learn as it goes to come to an end result that is presentable to a set of human eyes as an actionable. That's artificial intelligence. And there's one local company that we've been working with for a little bit on the tech scene in Canada that I think is a really strong artificial intelligence player, very undervalued, and up until people see this video, a little bit undiscovered in terms of the fact that it is an actual AI player. And that company is called Plurilock. Plurilock. PLUR is the ticker symbol. You may have seen the company before. It's involved in cybersecurity of a sort. But here's where it gets interesting. They're not just selling antivirus software. That's artificial unintelligence, right? That's just running a script. They're not going out there and scanning the networks looking for intruders. That's a whole different kind of cybersecurity. What they're doing is something that's really heavy on the AI, and here's how it goes. Right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm on my desktop here, and I have like 9 tabs open. If you were to come here on any given day of the week, you'd probably see the same 9 tabs. You've got Stockwatch, you've got my website, you've got the admin on the website, you've got my email. At this point, I've got my health insurance up there, I've got my banking, I've got Twitter, and I'm talking into OBS right now, and if I'm typing, my typing has a certain cadence because I'm self-taught, and I've been doing it for 50 years, and so there are a couple of cheats that I use that other people might not. I kind of miss A and S a lot for some reason. I confuse the two. So there's a lot of backspacing rather than taking the cursor back with my mouse pointer. So anybody who was standing over me and watching me, just watching like what I do with the tabs that I have on the screen, would say over time, yep, that's a very Chris Parry specific form of movement. What Plurilock does for companies that use it as an identity tool is it monitors the employees just like that. What have they got open? What are they doing? How long has it taken to move the mouse across the screen? What combinations of keys do they hit a lot? What's the cadence of their typing? And it's basically an artificial fingerprint. So that if I get up and go for a crap, and someone comes into my office and starts sending emails out of my account, Plurilock system would be able to identify that there's a different person at the desk, something's happened here, and that someone should go in and have a look. Now that may be that I've just slammed my finger in the drawer of my desk and I'm typing a little bit weirdly, but hey, if Bob from IT needs to come over and have a chat just to make sure, that's probably a smart thing. Now, if you're just relying on passwords, well, I've put my password into the system and now I've gone for a crap. So that's not really helping anybody. What Plurilock is doing is instead of just having the window that opens when you're walking in the door, it has someone watching you or something watching you 24/7 as you're doing your work, waiting for something that looks odd. If it finds something that looks odd, that doesn't mean necessarily that there's a problem. It just means that there's something that needs to be looked at, and with a whole bunch of other factors, you might realize that there's a problem. Plurilock, as a company, has come a long way in the last couple of years. They've had no credit at all for what they've done. What they did when they first landed on the public markets was they said, we've got this technology, it's great, it's going to be very, very, very useful for large companies, government departments, contractors, military, enterprise, to use this technology to keep their machines safer. And Lord knows we need that, because all over the place now we've got Russian hackers, we've got North Korean hackers, Chinese hackers, Indian hackers. They're all trying to get into our systems. And so here we are. We need one more piece of technology that doesn't get in the way. It doesn't slow us down like McAfee virus software does. It doesn't just create one layer of protection when you're first starting your day, like password logins do. It creates a constant umbrella that watches and listens and waits for a problem and is right there when it happens. This is big time technology. The problem for Plurilock when it started out was nobody believed that they could take that technology and turn it into business with government. Excuse me. Now, business with government is difficult to get. You got to show that, one, you're going to be around for a while because they don't want to start doing business with you if you're going to be gone in 2 months' time. Two, you got to show that you're trustworthy. You got to go through the background security checks. Make sure that you're the kind of person that government agencies want to do business with. That just doesn't mean that you're up to date on your credit card payments. That means some deep background checking. And it's not easy to do. It takes time. In order to get a government department to do all of that, they really need to use your software. Like, they really need to want to do business with you. They're not going to just do it because you're in the market. They got to decide that they definitely want to do business with you to the point where they will go ahead and run you through the ringer to make sure that they can. Once you've got that sort of clearance, the sky's the limit, but it can take years, and sometimes it can take forever. Sometimes you just don't get it, and your great plans go to waste. Plurilock has gone through that process and got themselves approved for government use. This is not an easy thing in the United States, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. They're going to go through everything to make sure that there's nothing about you that can get them in trouble. Imagine, if you will, the US government opening up the back door, letting you into their house, letting you go through all their stuff, get hooked into their computer system, read through all their security. Like, that is a big deal. That's not something that they do at the drop of a hat. To get to that point where you are allowed to become part of the security apparatus is a major thing. So Plurilock, if it was failing, you'd look and say, there's no government contracts here. Plurilock's problem right now is there's a lot of government contracts and they're not allowed to say who they're with. I sat down with Ian Patterson, the CEO, just a couple of weeks ago and said, dude, you got to give me something I can talk about here. Like, give me one contractor that you've done business with that I can talk about. And he said, legitimately, I can't tell you, or I would go to prison for treason. Now, one, it kind of tells you who he's doing business with, kind of. You can figure it out from there. But two, that is a big deal. That is, once you do business with that level of sophistication and snoopability, once you're into that realm, it is really difficult to let you out of that realm, right? Once you are part of what's top secret, they're not going to just on a given Wednesday say, thanks very much for that 6 months, contract's up, see you later. No, you are now part of the system. That means that these contracts become monthly, annual, and beyond, right? To unplug from these systems is a lot harder than plugging into them. So this is part of why when you get in there, it's such a big deal. Now, Plurilock, if you go through their news releases, there's a lot of things that look very similar from month to month. And it's always about sales. We've got $200,000 contract here, $1.2 million, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6. Like, every couple of weeks is another contract and another contract. They all have a dollar figure, but they don't have detail. And that's because it's out of necessity. You don't want your corporate confidential information to be out there on a press release. So as the next guy you try and do business with tries to squeeze you because the last guy got a good deal. So basically, all these news releases are vague, but they're also audited, so they're real. They're not going to tell you who the contract is with or what it's for, because that's confidential. They're going to tell you how much money's coming in and how much money in total is coming through the door. Well, in 2022, Plurilock's Aurora subsidiary had sales of $42.3 million over the course of the year. Why is that interesting? Well, I'll tell you why it's interesting, because the market cap on the owner of that subsidiary, on Plurilock itself, is $11 million. So Aurora, just by itself, one of their subsidiaries, is $42 million, and it's an $11 million company. An $11 million company selling an AI-driven computer security system to government and corporate contractors for $1 million at a time. Like, it's so obviously a good business. And if you're worried that, there's obviously the chance that Plurilock could run out of money. I mean, we don't know what their runway looks like. There's probably, like, they're making losses on a quarterly basis, as companies that are growing steadily tend to do. But for a company to be trading at 1/4 of its annual revenue of just one of its subsidiaries is bonkers. If they were losing money hand over fist, maybe that would make sense. If there was a potential that this company might run out of money and just have to throw in all the cards, sure. But there's not. You look at their news releases, it is a steady flow of government and corporate contractors piling in the door, and financing. So the recent financing was $1.7 million, I believe. It was oversubscribed for 1.5. In a rough market, with a share price that's a little bit lower than it should be, a lot lower than it should be, these guys managed to go out there and pull money out so that they could continue advancing things forward. Now, I've had a discussion with Ian Patterson, the CEO of Plurilock, and I made it pretty clear, and he agreed that other people have made it pretty clear, that this will be the quarter where Plurilock really needs to stop acquiring and start showing profit. This is the point where, generally speaking, over the last year, every quarter, Plurilock has thrown dollars and shares at acquisition targets to increase its scope. And every one of those acquisition targets is another company that is doing business in government, right? So they're adding market share, adding client numbers, and every time they do that, all of their other subsidiaries can now be lumped into that same contract. So those contracts start to grow. Very interesting business model, but not so good for the public markets, because they can't come out and say, we're doing business with the Department of Homeland Security for $2 million a year, and now we're doing business with the State Department. Now we're doing business with... They can't say any of that. They've got to keep all of those clients on the down low, because it's a confidential situation. And I'm just pulling those names out of my hat. I have no idea whether they do business with any of those guys. I do know, however, that they do business with government departments, with military, with corporations, and that information will never come out of Ian Patterson's lips, because his ability to get more of it is based on his ability to keep his mouth shut when he's doing it. Okay, so if we like AI, do we like Plurilock? To me, Plurilock is the perfect example of AI at work. This is a system that before AI suddenly became a big thing, and over the last few months, they were already in that market. They were already in that space a year and a half ago with a finished product. They're not out there finding an API used for ChatGPT. They have their artificial intelligence cybersecurity product they're actively selling right now in large numbers. Now, government contracts are great in one respect. They're not good that you can't talk about them, but they're great in that they are, generally speaking, permanent contracts, right? Officially speaking, they're not. Officially speaking, government in the US, they can't do contracts that are longer than 1 year, because revenues have to be, spending has to be authorized by Congress, etc., every year. So you can't do a multi-year contract, you can't do a permanent contract. You can do a month-to-month contract, and that's generally what they do. At the end of that year, there's no doubt, unless you do something stupid, that you're getting a renewal on that contract. But you can't claim that it's a permanent rolling over deal, because it doesn't work that way. So on a corporate level, for a B2C level, those sorts of contracts, you can go out there and say, we're doing a deal with Amazon for so many millions of dollars a year, and it will roll over, and it's great. Regularly recurring monthly revenue. But in government, you can't really do it that way. It's not as easy to advertise your wins. That's been the struggle that Plurilock has faced. They've had plenty of wins. They've done plenty of business, but they can't say for how much, and they can't say for who. For that side of things, you've got to rely on their auditors that can look at that stuff, can verify the contracts exist and are doing what they want, and that at the end of the year, the amount of money that they've made is the amount of money they've made. At a certain level of trust has to take place on both sides of the coin. Now, Plurilock, the last I saw, they've got, I think, $1.75 million in on their recent financing, which is respectable, and quite frankly is more than respectable for a company that lost 1.6 million in its last quarter. So basically they've replaced that money with a financing. And so you're in a situation now where the company realizes that it's not a good look to keep spending money on acquisitions, right? That loss factors in money spent acquiring business targets. What you don't want is for a continual loss based on the fact that you're growing to be overshadowed by the loss part of that. Okay, so people see, oh, there's a loss, well, they're going to run out of money. They don't see there's a loss because they spent X number of millions of dollars acquiring something that does $40 million a year in revenue. They just look at that loss and say, oh, that's a shame. Plurilock gets that, right? They understand that this is the time where they have to let their books settle down and put their expenses next to their revenues and see that the revenues are the higher number. That's what people need to see. So I would expect in their next round of financials, what you're going to see is a quieter quarter. That is money coming in, a lot less money going out, so that people can actually get a good sense of where they sit in terms of break even. I think that's going to be a smart move, and it's going to be a catalyst that we'll see people recognizing that this stock is low risk, that the work that's been done is impeccable, the successes that they've had are plentiful, and that going forward, they can now scale all of those contracts by adding new elements to them and ramping them up with more products. If you want actual AI that is doing business today, not AI that might be doing business in 6 months, not AI that's based on someone else's AI, but real, legitimate, we own it, we've got the patent on it, we've got the technology, it is in the system right now, AI, Plurilock, PLUR, ticker symbol, is something that's well worth your time right now. If you look at the stock price, it's flat, but starting to move. This is the time. We talked about Plurilock a long time, and the story has moved from can they do it to it looks like they're doing it to holy shit, they're doing it on a regular basis. Now it's time to scale. And this is the time. If you're ever going to get in there and you really got a little money set aside for AI-driven stuff, PLUR, this is the moment.